The Awakening. The message came without warning, piercing through 50 years of silence in the monitoring station orbiting Earth. Lieutenant Maya Ishikawa stared at her console, coffee forgotten in her hand as the impossible data scrolled across her screen. The midnight shift at Sentinel Station was typically a formality. Earth had withdrawn from galactic affairs decades ago, focusing inward after the Nexus Wars had nearly destroyed humanity. The deep space arrays remained operational only as an early warning system, not because anyone expected them to pick up anything of note. Until now. "Sir," she called, her voice barely above a whisper. "You need to see this." Station Commander Reyes drifted over in the low gravity, his weathered face illuminated by the blue glow of the monitors. "What am I looking at, Lieutenant?" "A distress signal, sir, from the Orion Reach." Reyes frowned. "That's impossible. We haven't had colonies that far out since the withdrawal." "The signal uses encryption protocols from before the Treaty of Proxima, sir. It's at least 40 years old." The signal repeated, growing stronger as the station's AI enhanced and decoded it. The voice was distorted but unmistakably human. A woman speaking with quiet urgency. "This is Administrator Valentin of Nova Haven Outpost. We are under attack by unknown forces. Our defense systems are failing. If Earth still exists, if anyone is listening, help us. They're killing everyone." Within hours, the dormant chambers of Earth's Security Council buzzed with activity for the first time in decades. Military officials, government representatives, and intelligence analysts crowded into the ancient war room beneath the Pacific. Admiral Teresa Santos stood silent as the message played again, her dark eyes fixed on the holographic star chart showing Nova Haven's location. At 68, she was one of the few active military leaders who had seen actual combat during the Nexus Wars. "The signal took 42 years to reach us," reported Intelligence Director Kwan. "Even if there were survivors, they're long dead by now." "Then why are we here?" asked one of the younger counselors. "To memorialize the dead." Admiral Santos finally spoke, her voice carrying the weight of command that had never quite left her. "We're here because it wasn't an isolated incident." She gestured, and the star chart expanded, red markers appearing across a swath of formerly human space. "These are outposts and colonies we've lost contact with over the past 20 years. We assumed they'd gone independent or suffered environmental failures." "You're suggesting they were attacked?" President Oko asked, leaning forward. "I'm suggesting that whatever force hit Nova Haven 40 years ago has been systematically moving through former human space ever since, and based on their trajectory," Santos traced a line with her finger, "they'll reach our current border worlds within 6 months." Silence fell over the room. "What do you propose?" the president finally asked. Admiral Santos straightened. "Activate the sleeper protocol." The statement sent a wave of shock through the room. "The sleepers were put into stasis for a reason." "Admiral," Security Minister Equim objected. "Those soldiers were deemed too dangerous to remain active after the Nexus Wars. The augmentations made them unstable." "They made them the most effective warriors humanity has ever produced," Santos interrupted. "And we're going to need them." The debate raged for hours, but in the end, the decision was inevitable. The threat was real, and Earth's current defenses were designed for peace, not war. One by one, the council members voted, and the president gave the final authorization. Deep beneath the lunar surface, in a facility whose existence was classified beyond top secret, technicians began reviving the first of the sleepers. Commander Ilara Chen opened her eyes for the first time in 52 years. The first sensation was cold, bone-deep cellular cold that came from having your metabolism artificially suspended for half a century. The second was pain, her augmentations reactivating, nanobots stirring to life within her bloodstream, reconnecting neural pathways that had been dormant for decades. The third was memory, blood, screaming, the burning hulks of starships drifting through the void, her own voice giving orders that condemned thousands to death in order to save millions. "Easy, Commander," a voice said from somewhere nearby. The disorientation will pass. Chen turned her head slowly, muscles stiff and uncooperative. A medical officer stood beside her revival pod, monitoring her vitals. Beyond him, she could see other pods, other sleepers in various stages of awakening. "Why?" she asked, her voice a rasp after decades of silence. "Humanity needs you again," came a different voice. Admiral Santos stepped into view, looking impossibly old to Chen, who remembered her as a young captain. "We're at war, or we will be, very soon." Chen closed her eyes. They had promised her rest, eternal rest, if she wanted it. After what she'd done, what she'd become, it had seemed a mercy. Instead, they were waking her up to do it all again. "The others?" she asked. "We're reviving all 300 of the Phoenix Brigade. Your ship has been maintained in orbital storage." The Phoenix Brigade. Elite soldiers whose bodies and minds had been enhanced beyond what many considered the limits of humanity. The cost had been high. Psychological instability, fractured identities, some said a loss of their very humanity. But they had turned the tide of the Nexus Wars when nothing else could. And her ship, the UCSS Nemesis. Just thinking the name sent a surge of something like longing through Chen's augmented nervous system. The neural connection between her and the warship had been more intimate than any human relationship she'd ever known. "How long do I have before deployment?" Chen asked, already calculating, planning. The soldier in her, the weapon they'd made her into, was awakening faster than the woman. 3 weeks for full physiological recovery, Santos replied. Then we begin retraining and mission prep. The fleet launches in 6 weeks. Chen nodded, then swung her legs over the edge of the pod, ignoring the medical officer's protests. Her muscles screamed in protest, but the nanobots were already repairing the atrophy, rebuilding her into what she had been, what she would need to be again. The reactivation of humanity's war machine accelerated over the following weeks. Ancient shipyards on Mars and Titan, preserved as historical monuments, groaned back to life. Sealed weapons depots were opened, revealing technologies that had been banned by the Treaty of Proxima. Planet killers, consciousness disruptors, swarm intelligences that could strip mine an entire civilization's digital infrastructure. Commander Chen watched from the observation deck as her ship was towed from orbital storage, its massive hull still bearing the scars of the final battle of the Nexus Wars. The UCSS Nemesis, a 13-kilometer-long capital ship designed not just to be controlled by her, but to merge with her consciousness. "Magnificent, isn't she?" Admiral Santos said, joining Chen at the viewport. "She's a monster," Chen replied, without looking away. "Just like me." Santos was silent for a moment. "The younger generation doesn't understand what you sacrificed. They grew up in the peace you bought them. They think the stories about the Phoenix Brigade are exaggerated. They're not." Chen's voice was flat. The silver-blue augmentation lines under her skin pulsed softly, visible evidence of what she had become. "Have you told them what I did at Tau Ceti, or Rigel, or what happened to 90% of my original brigade when the neural merging drove them insane?" "They'll learn," Santos said quietly, "whether we want them to or not." The shipyards of Luna bustled with activity as crews prepared the ancient warships for deployment. Unlike modern vessels with their elegant designs and automated systems, these were Titans built for a different kind of war. Brutal, overwhelming, terrifying even to their allies. In the neural interface chamber aboard the Nemesis, Chen underwent the excruciating process of reconnection. Surgical drones inserted filament-thin interfaces along her spine and into her brain stem, re-establishing the pathways that would allow her consciousness to expand beyond her physical body and into the ship itself. Young officers watched from behind safety glass, their expressions a mixture of awe and horror. They had been raised on sanitized stories of the Nexus Wars, where the Phoenix Brigade were portrayed as noble heroes, rather than the weaponized posthumans they had become. "How can she survive that?" whispered Lieutenant Cade, watching as Chen's back arched in involuntary response to the neural integration. "The better question," replied Captain Vetri, one of the few officers old enough to remember the wars, "is how much of her humanity survives it." When the integration was complete, Chen lay still on the surgical table, the blue lines beneath her skin pulsing in sync with the ship's core systems. She could feel the Nemesis now, its vast sensor arrays becoming extensions of her senses, its weapon systems tingling at the edges of her consciousness, like limbs just waiting to be flexed. A part of her had feared this moment, feared the rush of power, the expansion of self, the addictive feeling of becoming something more than human. A greater part had craved it, and that terrified her more. 5 days later, the first alien scout ship appeared at the edge of the Sol system. It moved with unnatural precision, actively scanning Earth's orbital defenses. In the command hub of the Nemesis, Chen felt the alien presence through the ship's sensors before the alert even sounded. "Contact," she announced, her voice overlapping with the automated warning system. The scout maintained its distance, observing but not engaging. It was sleek, biomechanical in appearance, with technology unlike anything in Earth's databases. "They're scanning our weapons systems," Lieutenant Cade reported. "Should we return fire?" Chen shook her head. "No, they're just taking our measure." She interfaced directly with the ship's communication array, broadcast on all frequencies. "This is Commander Ilara Chen of the United Earth Forces. You are in restricted space. Identify yourself and your intentions immediately." The alien vessel offered no response. Instead, it fired a single energy pulse, not at the human ships, but into empty space. The pulse expanded into a complex geometric pattern that hung in the void for several seconds before collapsing. A signal, Chen realized. They're calling for reinforcements. Before any countermeasures could be deployed, the scout accelerated to impossible speeds and vanished. In the silence that followed, Admiral Santos turned to Chen. "What are we facing, Commander?" Chen's augmented eyes tracked invisible patterns in space where the alien ship had been. "Something that doesn't fear us." Her gaze shifted to the tactical display, where the red markers showing attacked colonies formed a clear path toward Earth. But they should. The reckoning. The war fleet departed Earth orbit 3 days later, 7 capital ships including the Nemesis, accompanied by 22 support vessels. It was the largest military force humanity had assembled since the Nexus Wars, though still only a shadow of what they had once commanded. Commander Chen stood on the Nemesis's bridge as the fleet prepared for the jump to faster-than-light travel. The neural connection with her ship thrummed through her augmented nervous system, providing real-time data from every section of the massive vessel. "All ships report ready, Commander," Lieutenant Cade announced, unable to keep the nervousness from his voice. Like most of the junior officers, he had never experienced combat, never traveled beyond the Sol system. Chen nodded. "Execute jump sequence." The stars stretched and blurred as the fleet entered the artificial wormhole that would carry them to the edge of what had once been human space. In the privacy of her quarters, Chen reviewed the intelligence briefs on the attacked colonies. Nova Haven had been the first 42 years ago. Then Lyra's Point. Then New Titan. 17 more over the decades, each falling silent after sending fragmented distress calls. The pattern was methodical, inexorable. Whatever these aliens were, they were patient hunters. During the 3-week journey, Chen oversaw the training of the new generation of officers who would serve alongside the Phoenix Brigade. Most struggled to comprehend the capabilities of the ancient weapons systems they would be manning: reality distortion fields, quantum disruptors, consciousness scramblers that could reduce thinking beings to mindless husks. These weapons were banned for a reason, Chen told them during one briefing session. Using them costs us something essential, but facing extinction costs more. Lieutenant Cade stayed after one such session, his young face troubled. "Commander, the historical records about the Phoenix Brigade are incomplete. They don't explain what truly happened to you." Chen studied him for a long moment. "What do you want to know, Lieutenant?" The augmentations, the neural merging. Did you volunteer for it? Did you know what it would do to you? Chen's artificial eyes flickered, remembering. We volunteered to save humanity. The details were classified. She looked down at her hands, where silver-blue augmentation lines traced patterns beneath her skin. Out of my original unit of 50, 11 survived the process with their minds intact. The rest were lost to madness, or became something no longer recognizable as human. And you? Cade asked quietly. Chen's smile was mirthless. The jury's still out on that. As the fleet approached its destination, Chen found herself increasingly drawn to the Nemesis's observation deck. The neural connection allowed her to perceive every aspect of the ship from anywhere on board, but there was something about physically looking out at the stars that grounded her fluctuating sense of identity. Admiral Santos found her there the night before they were due to arrive at the colony of Epsilon Vega, the most recent human settlement to fall silent. Trouble sleeping, Commander? Santos asked, though she already knew the answer. The Phoenix Brigade required little sleep, another gift of their augmentations. I'm remembering, Chen replied. Everything I tried to forget in stasis. Santos joined her at the viewport. The decision to put your brigade into stasis wasn't just political, you know. It was mercy. After what the neural merging did to you, after what we asked you to become. You couldn't put us down like the weapons we were, so you shelved us instead. Chen finished without rancor. I fought for you, Santos said quietly. For all of you. Some wanted your brigade terminated after the war. Others wanted to keep you active, make more like you. Chen turned to face her. And what did you want? I wanted to give you back what you lost. But I couldn't. No one could. The conversation was interrupted by an alert. Commander to the bridge, came Lieutenant Cade's voice over the comm. We've arrived at Epsilon Vega. You need to see this. The colony of Epsilon Vega had been a thriving settlement of nearly 3 million people. Now it was a mausoleum. The orbital platforms were shattered husks. The once green planet below showed massive scars visible even from space. Impact craters, sprawling burn patterns, entire cities reduced to rubble. Life signs? Chen asked, though she already knew the answer. None, Commander, the sensor officer reported. But we're detecting unusual energy readings from the surface. Something is still active down there. Launch reconnaissance drones, Chen ordered. I want eyes on those energy signatures. The drone footage revealed what remained of Epsilon Vega's capital city. The destruction was methodical, not frenzied. Buildings systematically demolished, infrastructure precisely disabled. In the center of the city stood a massive structure that hadn't been there before, a dark, crystalline tower that pulsed with the same energy signature they had detected from orbit. It's a beacon, Intelligence Officer Wei concluded after analyzing the data. Similar to the signal the scout ship sent, but orders of magnitude more powerful. They're mapping human space, Chen realized. Each colony they destroy, they leave a beacon to navigate by. They're working their way toward Earth. As if summoned by the thought, the fleet's sensors detected multiple ships emerging from faster-than-light travel. Dozens of vessels, similar to the scout they had encountered but larger, more heavily armed. Battle stations, Chen ordered, feeling the nemesis awaken fully around her, through her. The neural connection deepened as combat systems came online, her consciousness expanding until the ship became an extension of her body, its weapons her limbs, its sensors her eyes. The alien vessels approached in perfect formation, breaking into smaller attack groups as they neared the human fleet. They're so precise, Lieutenant Cade observed, like they share a hive mind. No, Chen said, her voice distant as she interfaced more deeply with the nemesis. They're machines, biomechanical constructs piloted remotely or by some form of artificial intelligence. The realization changed everything. Machines wouldn't be deterred by fear, wouldn't retreat to preserve their lives. But they also wouldn't be protected by the ethical constraints that had limited humanity's weapons development. All ships, Chen broadcast to the fleet. Initiate Protocol Omega. Target their command vessels with consciousness disruptors. The order sent a ripple of shock through the bridge. Consciousness disruptors had been developed specifically to attack the neural nets of artificial intelligences, reducing them to their base code. Their use had been prohibited by the Treaty of Proxima due to the risk of affecting human neural patterns at range. But the Phoenix Brigade had been designed to withstand such effects. As the alien fleet closed to attack range, the human vessels held their position. The aliens interpreted this as weakness or indecision, accelerating their approach. Now, Chen commanded. The Nemesis and 2 other Phoenix Brigade ships fired simultaneously, invisible waves of quantum disruption expanding outward. To human eyes, nothing seemed to happen, but the effect on the alien vessels was immediate and catastrophic. Their perfect formation disintegrated. Dozens of ships suddenly drifted, their systems in chaos as the artificial intelligences controlling them fragmented under the assault. The human fleet followed with conventional weapons, tearing through the disorganized alien forces. What should have been an even match became a rout. But Chen, through the neural connection, sensed something else, a larger presence lurking at the edges of the system, observing. Whatever controlled these mechanical proxies was watching, learning. "They're retreating," Admiral Santos announced as the surviving alien vessels flowed into faster-than-light jumps. "No," Chen corrected, her eyes distant with the expanded awareness the neural merging provided. "They're regrouping." This was a test. They wanted to see what we're capable of. The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. "How many more colonies will be attacked while we sit here?" Lieutenant Cade asked. "None," Chen replied with cold certainty. "We've changed the equation. For 50 years, humanity has been dormant, peaceful, easy prey moving in predictable patterns. These hunters expected to find the same defenseless colonies they've been consuming for decades." She turned to face the command staff, the silver-blue augmentation lines beneath her skin pulsing with power as the Nemesis's systems coursed through her consciousness. "Instead, they found us. The monsters humanity created to fight its wars and then tried to forget. The sleeping giants they should have left alone." Admiral Santos stepped forward. "What are you suggesting, Commander?" Chen's artificial eyes gleamed. "We stop reacting. We stop defending. We take the fight to them." She interfaced with the tactical systems, bringing up a holographic display of known alien activity. "Based on the beacon network they've established, I can extrapolate the location of their central control system or homeworld." The map expanded, showing a region of space far beyond where humanity had ever ventured. "We'll need more ships, more Phoenix Brigade awakened from stasis, and we'll need to deploy technologies I hoped would never be used again." "The Treaty of Proxima," one of the senior officers began, "is irrelevant." Chen cut him off. "There is no treaty with these beings. They'd been systematically exterminating human colonies for 4 decades without provocation or communication. They didn't come to conquer or subjugate. They came to eliminate." She looked around the command deck at the faces of the young officers who had never known war, and the older ones who had hoped never to see it again. "Humanity withdrew from the stars because we were afraid of what we might become if we embraced our full capacity for violence. These beings have mistaken that restraint for weakness." The neural connection pulsed as the Nemesis responded to her rising emotions. "It's time to show them their mistake." As the fleet prepared to return to Earth, carrying the grim news and the call for full military mobilization, Chen returned to the observation deck. The stars looked different to her now, filtered through both human eyes and the Nemesis sensors. Lieutenant Cade found her there, standing at attention. "Orders, Commander." Chen didn't turn from the viewport. "Send a message to Earth. Tell them to wake everyone. Every Phoenix Brigade member in stasis. Tell them to reactivate every mothballed warship. Tell them." She paused, feeling the weight of history and future converging on this moment. 50 years ago, she had fought to save humanity. Now she would fight to ensure that nothing ever threatened it again. Tell them the sleeping giants are awake, and we're angry.